All right. Now that I've stopped being stupid and I've unmuted myself, we're ready to go for today. We have our tea. I showed it before, but I'll show it again because when I mention it, you have to see that it's there. Otherwise, I could just be making it up. How would you know? How would you know? It is peach tea. We might need something stronger today, but I'm not gonna get it. So today the plan is we're gonna watch some PragerU videos. I guess we'll do context and a bit of and like some warnings ahead of time. We'll start with one concern I have. I am worried that I'm not necessarily going to be educated enough to debunk some of the stuff they talk about, and I'm going to avoid certain videos for that reason. I don't know what videos I'm going to go over. I'm just going to browse around. We'll see. I'm trying to do less prepared stuff, so it's, you get more authentic reactions, just my off the cuff responses. That said, um, as I say, like they're very adept at lying, and sometimes the skill and the knowledge required to debunk their lies is absurd. One good example of exactly this phenomenon, and I can try to find the video. Oh, well, I'm glad I did this because once again OBS is disconnected. Oh, right. It can't find it if it's minimized. That's what it is. Um, Give me one moment. Just gotta fiddle with OBS being weird. One really good example of this is um, a video created by the name of Sean. Obviously, you're way more likely to know who this person is than me because he has a much larger channel. But this video
Hello.
is 2 hours 20 minutes. Phenomenal video, very insightful, very interesting. And spoilers, it is secretly a debunk of a PragerU video, and that's how long it takes sometimes to demonstrate the falsehood of these 5-minute videos. That said, we're going to try not to get into stuff where that's going to be
Questions.
much of an issue. I'm actively going to try to avoid videos where I worry I'm just going to be platforming their stupid ideas. I guess platforming is kind of a weird way to put it because, again, PragerU is a huge channel. They have 3 million subscribers, as we see here. But I don't want to simply broadcast their positions if I don't have a means of demonstrating their falsehood. That said, a lot of them, just a quick Google search, will prove why they're wrong. Now, for a little bit of context, for those of you who don't know, PragerU is a fake university. It is a YouTube channel that calls itself a university, as if that makes it a thing. And I guess I'm not showing you oh no, I am because we're in the full version. We don't have it expanded yet, which I will do now. So now you can't see it. Uh, let's just get the title in there. All right, and you'll see how much I fiddle with this title because I'm constantly doing this as we're watching. I just can't stop fiddling. In any case, they are a fake university funded originally by oil billionaires. I assume they're still getting their funding that way, but they also have merch and whatever else. They have other revenue streams, but they are funded by oil billionaires, which leads to, well, that in conjunction with just being really dishonest right-wing propagandists will lead to a lot of positions that are absolute nonsense, but of course are merely trying to be propaganda. So they have certain things they're always going to be against and always be for, and they don't care what they have to say and how many lies they have to say to get those ideas across. One thing, for example, that they're often against is college education. I think this is for a number of reasons. One of them is that the right has noticed. Well, I guess everybody has noticed, but the right in particular, in this case, has noticed that educated people tend to be left leaning because it turns out you have to deny a lot of reality to believe right wing positions. You can't have an accurate view of the world and how things work and still hold these positions without actively lying. Which, to be fair, the people at PragerU are happy to do, but they understand that a lot of people, at the very least, like to think, like to be, or like to try to be honest, and education gets in the way of that. Just by being around people with different ideas, you start to see how different people think. You start to learn different things. We even saw yesterday with the genetically modified skeptic talking about his own experience of, starting to break the creationist hold on his mind by attending a school that told him true things. Now, of course, they'll paint it as they're lying to you and they're indoctrinating you into being a liberal or whatever, but ultimately it's just people are being told what's true. And a saying I've heard before is that reality has a liberal bias, at the very least in the liberal versus conservative view of the world. If those are the ends of your, if those are the limits of your Overton window, yeah, really reality has a liberal bias. As it turns out, it is just worse to want to do a lot of the things PragerU claims to want to do. Additionally, I wonder how much of it is just, well, we work for oil billionaires and unskilled labor is a thing, or maybe not unskilled labor. That's the wrong phrase. People without educations are often the people who will get into work in oil fields and such, and the more of them they are, the less power they have as collective workers together. There's a lot more competition for that. It drives wages down. There's a lot less power when there's more competition for that labor, and maybe they don't get paid as much. And so I wonder how much of that factors in. I don't know that that's necessarily what we're going to get into here, but with a title like "Don't Follow Your Passion," it's got to be like, hey, I know you want to be an artist, but like, fuck you, go into business because we need more people to like do business, which we don't really, but in a capitalist view of the world, art is a luxury that the rich can indulge in, but you plebeian, you need to get back to work and make me more money. So that's where I think this is going, but I ain't seen it, so we're gonna find out.
There are only two things I can tell you today that come with absolutely no agenda. The first
That's
is
probably not true.
congratulations.
All right, so Mike Rowe, CEO of, oh, I can't see
The
because of the
second
caption.
is good luck. Everything
All
else.
right, let's back it up.
The first
Mike,
is there are only two things I can tell you today that come with absolutely no agenda. The first is
Micro
congratulations.
CEO of MicroWorks. So let's do a little, because oftentimes we're not going to do this every time. And you know what? I actually changed my mind. We might look into who this guy is, but I'm going to wait for it to become relevant if it does. Oftentimes, who you're listening to is going to have an impact. And I want to, instead of preempting it and knowing who it is ahead of time, someone might call that poisoning the well. I might call it context. Let's listen to him talk and then wonder how much it's factoring into what he's saying. Because remember, he is a CEO of his own company. So he is incentivized to reduce the power of his workers and increase his own power. And like I said, with more competition for jobs, that means CEOs. It's a buyer's market for labor, as it were.
The second is good luck. Everything else is what I like to call the dirty truth, which is just another way of saying it's my opinion. And in my opinion,
PragerU speaker who acknowledges that he's not gonna. Instead of giving truth, he's just gonna spout his opinion. It's rare that they're this honest. I'm surprised. Obviously, they wouldn't phrase it that way. He's calling it the dirty truth or whatever. But all right, we gotten some terrible advice. What's the terrible advice?
Your passion. Every time I watch the Oscars, I cringe when some famous movie star, trophy in hand, starts to deconstruct the secret of their success. It's always the same thing. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't have what it takes, kid. And the ever-popular, never give up on your dreams.
So I kind of get what he's saying here, and there's a part of me that agrees, because there is a lot of survivorship bias in Hollywood. They'll always say, like, follow your dreams, it worked for me. Well, yeah, if you're in a position to say that, it will have worked for you, but we don't see the millions of people that, never made it big or never got even a role that they were happy to have. I don't even mean like were a super mega celebrity, but how many people toiled away never even getting just a speaking role in a thing. And we don't see those people, and like I said, it's the survivorship bias. I expect some unhealthy extrapolations from this, though. This is often how propaganda works, where they'll lead with something uncontroversial and then seemingly logically extrapolate it into something that if you look at it with any sort of scrutiny, is complete nonsense and doesn't follow at all. So this is the bait of like, oh, he's speaking the truth because like, yeah, this is kind of ridiculous. And some of these people, have been trying their whole lives with rich families to support them in order to get to this position, but they're just saying follow your dreams. Well, it's easy for you to say, well, we'll see where he goes.
Look, I understand the importance of persistence and the value of encouragement, but who tells a stranger to never give up on their dreams without even knowing what it is they're dreaming?
Okay, I mean,
How can
here
they
we
be
are. That's like absolutely absurd. When people say follow your dreams, it's they don't mean like, oh, you think a thing that you think you can literally become Superman? Follow that. Obviously, there is a presumption of what a likely dream is going to be. Or when people talk about their dreams, they mean what they wish they could accomplish in the future. And usually people are pretty reasonable about that. It's very silly he didn't say it, obviously, it was the animation, but still, it's like, obviously, it's within reason.
Gaga possibly know where your passion will lead you? Have these people never seen American Idol? Year after year, thousands of aspiring American Idols show up with great expectations only to learn that they don't possess the skills they thought they did.
So, this is where we're doing a little bit of conflation. What do people mean by follow your passion? Sometimes people mean you should commit yourself to it wholeheartedly and do nothing else and damn the consequences if this doesn't work. I think in every case, no matter what your goal is, that is dangerous advice. Very risky. You should, obviously have plans so that you will survive and be able to pursue, or maybe if you really want to sing, you have your day job while you maybe practice and go to auditions and do American Idol type stuff. It don't throw everything away, obviously, but to reject this out of hand kind of goes against the other version of that, where don't let your dreams die. Don't become a hollow husk because you couldn't do the thing you cared about passionately as the only thing. These people who may not possess the skills they think they do, who who audition for American Idol, I think they should still sing. It's clearly something they're passionate about, something they enjoy doing, even if it's just like in the car or in the shower or with their friends and family. It makes them happy. Please keep doing these things that make you happy. That doesn't mean it has to be a career. And in fact, it's kind of this weird quirk of capitalism that we assume our passions must be careers. Careers are important, but that shouldn't be all of what matters to you. I mean, even a couple of generations prior, this is really obvious. My grandparents owned a business for many years. The things that made them happy were things like their family, and their business was a useful means towards that end. It wasn't. I mean, I don't want to speak too much for them. I know one of them is watching. It mattered to them, but what makes them really happy is the stuff that income supports. So like, no, these American Idol contestants, or want to be contestants, I really hope they continue to sing even if they get told they're not good enough for American Idol or whatever, because it makes them happy, and that's enough reason to do it. It's not hurting anyone. Uh, and it brings joy to their life, and very likely the people around them, I'm guessing the people who auditioned didn't go with their whole family telling them not to, and in fact there are some auditions where a person's family member is in the room watching them do very poorly but are still supportive because it makes them happy. I don't know how many ways and times I can say it makes them happy, so please keep doing it. But oh, we'll just keep going from here. I'm not exactly sure how he means it, but the implication is very clearly like, you can't sing, give up, go work at McDonald's.
What's really amazing, though, is not their lack of talent. The world's full of people who can't sing. It's their genuine shock at being rejected. The
Yeah,
incredible
sometimes it's hard.
realization.
Well, I mean, there's a bit of, I don't know how it is for everybody, but at least from my experience, yeah, there's a little bit of like, I'm pretty apprehensive about singing in front of other people. I'm reluctant to do it. I like to sing. I sing in the car all the time, but I because I'm worried about being told that I'm terrible, I don't sing in front of people. And I don't know how much people in these positions are able to do that, or like have that same feeling, or maybe are just only surrounded by people who tell them they're amazing, or are self-deluded. There are a lot of things that go into this, but sometimes this can just be a really self-conscious, a big thing on just being self-conscious and you know, just go for it. I don't know how often this is a thing, but this is something I can imagine happening for if like I were in a situation like that. Not that I have been or would be. So I guess I also shouldn't speak to what these people are thinking when this could be just me.
Their passion and their ability had nothing to do with each other.
Now that said, also passion and ability I find often go hand in hand, not because you have this natural talent. Sometimes with singing, like there are things you just cannot do anything about if your vocal range just isn't what it needs to be. I don't know if it can be extended, but like there are biological factors in that. What if for example you're mute, your vocal cords just don't work, or what happened to Miles Davis where he got polyps and he couldn't sing anymore. Maybe you don't have an ability like in a biological sense, but a lot of things where people are passionate, you can develop an ability, and because you're passionate, you will where others won't. A pretty reasonable example, at least in my life, is me with Magic the Gathering. I've been playing for more than 20 years now. I like to think I'm pretty good at the game. I'm not good enough to play professionally, but that skill came a lot from having the kind of passion for it that will allow me to keep at this for more than 20 years and still want to keep going with it. And that practice and repetition, I'll only get better with time from here. And that's only possible because of this passion. When people try to do things they're not passionate about, it becomes grueling. And this is where that saying comes from: "You do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life." I think the idea is like, if this is something you would do because you enjoy it, it's not really work. Now, of course, the conflation again is that this can be your career, which it often isn't. Me playing Magic isn't necessarily a viable career option, especially when I'm not able to play well enough to be a professional. Maybe if y'all want to see more Magic content, like I did some of that. I did some of that yesterday, and maybe I'll do more in the future. That maybe in that way it could be a real career. But even if it wasn't, I enjoy doing it, and so I'll keep at it and I'll keep getting better. And this is how a lot of people are. This is how we have this association with passion and ability. It's just sometimes there are types of ability where your passion can't overcome it. Another good example that my aunt hates, because I make this joke all the time. I was like, I'm really tall. I'll never win limbo competitions, no matter how passionate I am. I just have a natural disadvantage at that end. So there are some things where you're not really able to. But if I really enjoyed limbo and someone told me to stop doing it, that'd be pretty messed up, actually. And if I were like I should make a career out of this, then someone should tell me, hey, maybe don't make a career out of it, but not to give up, or not to avoid following it. Maybe I can do competitions in my free time because it's fun for me.
Look, if we're talking about your hobby, by all means, let your passion lead you.
Okay, so he's
but when
like
it comes
kind of
to
okay
making
with
a
that.
living, it's easy to forget the dirty truth. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you won't suck at it.
Kind of hidden in here is like,
you've earned a degree in
it's
your
okay to
chosen
do
field.
something you hate. Like if your job is something you hate, that should be expected, because your passion won't pay the bills. So like, come work for me at my shitty company where I'll treat you like garbage. I don't know what his company's like, but he's a CEO, so I'm predisposed to unsharitability. There's kind of hidden in there this implication, though this is surprisingly less contentious than I would have expected.
It doesn't mean you're going to find your dream job. Dream jobs are usually just that, dreams. But
again,
their
implication
imaginary
that your job
existence
will suck.
just might keep you from exploring careers that offer a legitimate chance to perform meaningful work and develop a genuine
and I will
passion.
say, I think one risk about being invested in your passions is that sometimes it blinds you to other things that you might also be passionate about. So the problem there isn't that, it won't pay the bills or whatever, but maybe you won't know about a thing that you would be good at and maybe would really enjoy. For example, it didn't occur to me to to try getting into programming until a friend suggested it to me some years ago, and I went to a programming boot camp and started doing that. And while it's not so much a passion for me that I do it for fun, it's not it's not like a thing I just do as a hobby. I would only really be interested in doing it as a career. It is something that I find enjoyable enough as a career where I can do that. And I might have missed out on that if I had, for example, uh, exclusively been interested in playing Magic professionally, as an example. But that said, I don't think a lot of people necessarily do that. I just mean to say, stay open, look around, see what things might interest you. Same thing with even with streaming. Like I was just like, you know what, maybe this is something I'd enjoy doing, so I'm trying it out. And if I do enjoy it, maybe I'll keep it up. It doesn't even necessarily. I'm not even necessarily committed to this being a career in the same way, but you should explore your passions and see what makes you happy. I think that's what's good in life is finding fulfillment in these ways and finding these things that are interesting to you and make you happy like that. And no, I don't think it has to be that you have a garbage job that you're fantasizing about doing something else in. If you're not happy, try to find something that will make you happy and will pay the bills.
For the job you already have. Because here's another dirty truth. Your happiness on the job has very little to do with the work itself.
Oh yeah, there it is again. Yeah, who cares if you're unhappy at work? Yeah, this is where it's like the CEO tendencies. You can derive good things from these messages, but holy shit, like your happiness at the job has nothing to do with the work. Yeah, just make yourself happy. Who cares what your conditions are or what's like how shitty your boss treats you? I'm not sure that that's necessarily what he's saying, but it's definitely it definitely feels implied.
I remember a very successful septic tank cleaner, a multimillionaire who told me the secret to his success.
Go on.
I looked around to see where everyone else was headed, he said, and then I went the opposite way. Then I got good at my work. Then I began to prosper, and then one day I realized I was passionate about other people's crap.
So this is kind of antithetical to what he's saying, right? You should follow your passion. He just didn't know. The septic tank guy just didn't know he had this passion. Just didn't know that it was something he found really interesting. Part of it is this person seems like they have a passion for improving their skills at whatever they're doing, which I think is admirable. I think that's a really good quality to have. And that would lead him to find when he's in this position to want to be as good at it as he can, to get better at it, and he ends up finding a passion in this way. This isn't abandoning your passion; it's finding other ones. This is actually, it's kind of funny, exactly what I was just talking about. You should see what things you could be passionate for, what things interest you that you might not necessarily have thought about in the first place. That's what this guy did, but it's being painted as like, just go into whatever shit job. Just get into whatever shit job and like the happiness comes from you, not your conditions. Well, I mean, sometimes there are things that are just going to be really painful to do, irrespective of your outlook on the subject. Like if it's just something that's really really painful for you to do in whatever way, even if it's if for example you're highly interested, like what if this guy who's really pretty clearly interested in getting really good at what he's doing was at a job in like fast food where how you do things is dictated by the people above. You have this is the way it's being done. It is to be done. You don't really have room to explore and grow. No freedom in your work. It's not going to pay you because he's talking about being beginning to prosper is important for him. It's not going to pay you well. Do you think he'd have the same level of happiness in his life working at a job like that? I don't think so. And so maybe it has nothing to do with his outlook. Even with what we know about him, it seems pretty unlikely that would be a good place for him. So maybe it does matter what your work is actually like. I mean, I've even had a job that I enjoyed, but the people around me were so awful that it made me not want to work there anymore. And that has nothing to do with either the job or my outlook, but the people around me. Like, there are so many things that factor into this. You should expect to be treated well at work. That is a right that I think people ought to have, and part of that comes from within. Part of that comes with how you look at the world, but a lot of that comes with stuff that you can't control. But this is again like on the right, they can't acknowledge things you can't control. We're bringing it back to politics. We found it. You can't acknowledge something like that, a systemic problem. Then they'd have to, then you'd have to realize that it's not all bootstraps. Oftentimes there are things outside of your control that can make your life worse, and you need to work more collectively to solve those problems. And it's not just going to be solved by your mindset or your bootstraps.
I've heard that same basic story from welders, plumbers,
All
carpenters,
high-paying
electricians, HVAC
all paid,
professionals,
high-paying
hundreds
jobs,
of other
not
skilled tradesmen
yes,
who
skilled
followed
tradesmen,
opportunity,
not minimum wage
passion,
labor,
and prospered as a result. Consider the reality of the current job market. Right now, millions
this
of
was
people
6 years
with
ago, so it would've been a
degrees
little
and
different.
diplomas are out there competing for a relatively narrow set of opportunities that polite society calls good careers. Now, meanwhile, employers are
You can work
struggling.
at my company, and I'll pay you shit and treat you like garbage, but you'll be making me money, and you can figure out how you'll enjoy that anyway. Yeah.
To fill nearly 5.8 million jobs that nobody's trained to do. This is the skills gap. It's real, and it's
This is the kind of thing I would want to look into, because this is the kind of thing where PragerU is probably lying about this, but this was 6 years ago. I don't even know what he's talking about to let alone to try to find it. I'll do a quick glance to see if there are any links in the description, because of course there aren't. But let's make it let's make it clear. Oh, there's even a script here. Yeah, of course there's no sources in the description. Remember, university, by the way. Here, I told you a thing, believe it. You can't. I'm not going to show you how this conclusion was reached, or where that information comes from, or or even demonstrate that it's true. Just believe me. But this is also something I noticed about education in general. But the further right you go, the more this is a thing, where education is believe what you're told, and I'll tell you the things that are true, as opposed to here's how you can find out what's true. Which is why, as I mentioned previously, educational facilities tend to have a left-wing bias. Just when you're learning how things work, you won't arrive at these conclusions that are based on people not understanding it and just believing what they're told.
very simple. When people follow their passion, they miss out on all kinds of opportunities they didn't even know existed.
I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about, but he's conflating. So he's doing a little bit. What he's talking about is a little bit different. He's talking about economic opportunities, and is like a little bit saying you'll make your own happiness. Who cares what your situation is? And a little bit saying you'll find a passion here. I think the latter is reasonable. Maybe there are opportunities that will support you better, but also you'll find fulfillment in, or just won't you hate what you're doing, and you can find your fulfillment elsewhere. That's how I often have looked at career. I don't think I'll find very much fulfillment. I don't think I find very much fulfillment in career, but it funds my ability to find fulfillment elsewhere. But I don't. But it's not a forking path like this. In some sense, those people who audition, like I said, those people who audition at American Idol, they can still sing. Go to karaoke bars, do amateur singing night or whatever. This thing clearly makes you happy. Keep doing it. It doesn't have to be an either or situation. That's not the totality of your life is not work, and to view it that way is I don't know, it makes you small. Yeah, it really bothers me, as you can tell. It just is such a narrow way of looking at the world and looking at your life.
When I was 16, I wanted to follow in my grandfather's footsteps. He was a skilled tradesman, could build a house without a blueprint. That was my passion.
That's awesome.
And I followed it for years. I took all the shop classes at school.
It's completely off topic, but it reminds me a little bit of my grandfather. He used to be, before he owned that business that I had mentioned previously, he used to be a mechanic. He had a gas station, And he was telling me stories of like when he was learning how to put together engines and how cars work. He, as a drill, would take apart an engine in its entirety, not label anything, just throw all the pieces in a bucket, and then put it together again. There are definitely some really impressive craftspeople out there. Honestly, watching masters of their craft do their thing is is really really interesting. I got into for a little while blacksmithing videos, and now that I've like seen enough of them where I have a vague idea of what they're doing, I'm not gonna have a complete idea. I'm obviously not an expert in this field. It is really cool to watch craftsmen, and now I still watch some blacksmith videos of them making a knife or a sword with high level of skill, and it is really cool to see that. And yeah, like craftspeople are, I don't know. It's the kind of thing that the more economy has moved into being service oriented, we don't see that much anymore. But having that level of skill with a craft is really cool to me. Of turning these raw materials into something that we use. I mean, obviously people aren't using swords all the time. I just watch it because I'm a nerd and I think swords are cool. But you get the point. And his father, it sounds like it was a similar way of just very skilled craftsman. Build a house without blueprints. That's really impressive. That's a lot of skills built into that. By the way, skills that they'll teach at these colleges that could simultaneously be a thing you're passionate about and also be a thing that is useful, like being an architect. That's very very useful. I don't know.
I did all I could to absorb the knowledge and skill that came so easily to my granddad. Unfortunately, the handy gene is
This is not genetic.
It skipped right over me, and I struggled mightily to overcome my deficiencies, but I couldn't. I was one of those contestants on American Idol.
There are a lot of things that go into this. This is like the debate as to whether talent is even really a thing, and it's something I've thought about a lot. Part of the question is, what do we mean by talent? Sometimes it's like that innate ability, like he's talking about the handiness gene. I don't believe that it's inherent to a person. Maybe there are some things that'll make you better or worse at some certain concepts. Like obviously Michael Phelps has an enormous wingspan, disproportionate to his height, and like he's kind of a genetic anomaly in that way, and that's what makes him in part such a good swimmer. Sure, that's a thing. But for things like construction, and being able to build a house, I think he could have done it if he had really put the time and effort into it. And if he had really, maybe if he had learned a lot of these things that his did he say his dad or his granddad uh, had to figure out on his own. If he had learned from it, an institution, maybe he wouldn't have had the natural like gift for it, or his granddad might not have even had a gift. We only see the end product. Maybe he had to work really hard for it too. We don't really know. uh, Maybe he could have gotten to that point. I more I more believe in skill as opposed to talent, as a combination of, sometimes you just, when you pick up a thing, you're a little bit better at it than the guy next to you, but that has to be, but depending on how much effort is put into things, you can reach different levels of skill. And I don't think that this talent thing is really that innate. More likely, it's that what I was talking about before about passion leading to ability, where if you're really interested in something, you'll pursue it and not even realize you're doing it. I didn't set out to play Magic for 20 years. I just thought the game was cool and was having fun with it. And because I was having fun with it over the course of that time, I learned a lot and got much better at it. Well, that's the exact thing I'm talking about. Like someone who doesn't like the game. My sister, I tried to teach to play. She hated it. Okay, well then she's not going to be good at it. Obviously, I don't think she cares either. Nor should she. Don't play Magic. Don't do it. Uh, but I don't really believe in this like natural talent thing. I could be persuaded. But my inclination is that is more a stand-in for cultural biases or personal experience or passion, which is going to be unique to the individual based on their own life experiences, than it is, I have a gene for handiness.
Who believed his passion was enough to ensure his success. One day, I brought home a sconce I had made in wood shop. Looked like a paramecium. After a heavy sigh, my granddad gave me the best advice I've ever received. He told me, Mike, you can still be a tradesman, but only if you get yourself a different kind of toolbox.
This is weird to me. Like, he's still learning. It's going to suck. It's a little weird to have this expectation that people are good from the outset. Maybe that's where you get this myth of talent of if you're not good at it immediately, you should put it down. Maybe he could have been really good at it, even if it wasn't great at the beginning. People are usually bad at things that they try for the first time, even if they're good at it as compared to other people who try it immediately. They are really bad at it as compared to people who have a practice skill in that area. I don't know. This is a little weird. And for what it's worth, this is not terrible advice either. He shouldn't necessarily be trying to pigeonhole himself into this specific endeavor. Maybe there are other things he'd find more interesting. Actually, a reasonable example of this is my girlfriend. She was really interested. Her dad was really interested in her doing track and field because I think he competed similarly when he was. And I don't think he like pushed her into it or anything. I think it was just more she knew it would make him happy kind of thing. But as it turns out, she had a real passion for doing the yearbook, and finding that made her really happy in a way where if she had exclusively focused on athletic competition, she might not have found it, and that would have been, the kind of tragedy we'll never know about. And these things happen constantly. It's that like opportunity cost of doing anything, and it's not necessarily a tragedy, but it's more. I guess it's not a tragedy if it hadn't have happened, but it is whatever the opposite of a tragedy is. It's serendipitous that she did find it, and she was able to find something that made her really happy in that way, and that she gets to take with her. She gets to take that happiness with her into the future. So, maybe this advice is also is like you can still be a tradesman. It's true. You can still try at this if you want. Maybe you need a different kind of toolbox. Maybe you need to do something different, or maybe you just need to keep practicing at this, and it might take longer for you to get to where you want to go than you thought it would, or maybe than his granddad thought he would.
At the time, this felt contrary to everything I believed about the importance of passion and persistence and staying the course. But of course, he was right.
Was he? Like, why couldn't
staying
you
the course
keep at it?
That only makes sense if you're headed
like in your
a
downtime.
sensible direction. And while passion is way too important to be without, it is way too fickle to follow around. Which brings us to the final dirty truth. Never follow your passion.
Not true. Very not true. So this is where we've extrapolated to the point of nonsense. No, that's not true at all. I'm sure Michael Phelps is very passionate for swimming. He wouldn't be able to have done it for that long and to that degree of investment if he weren't passionate about it. And you were to tell him not to do it? No. Like, even by this guy's logic, where you should only pursue your passion if you're good at it, that doesn't mean never do it. That means monitor whether it, like, if you have ability, you should proceed. But this also leads to the American Idol people, where they think they're better than they are. This advice is just absolutely horrible. Do not listen to PragerU on anything ever, but especially here.
But always bring it with you.
True. Always bring your passion with you. I did competitive debate in high school. That was a long time ago, but it lives with me, and it still makes me happy, and I'm still using what I learned there on this channel. Yeah, absolutely bring your passion with you. In a way that this guy seems to ignore. Like, did he keep at the like craftsmanship in his downtime? Like, he's a CEO, he has the time. Like, does he still try at it? I hope he does. Just, because it seems like it was something he was really interested in. He wanted to be kind of like his granddad in that way, and if it makes him happy, I really hope he keeps at it. But he's kind of saying don't. Like, I don't know. It's really
Congratulations again, and good luck. I'm Mike Rowe from MicroWorks for Prager University.
Also, nice quote unquote professor here. Just a CEO. He owns a business. That's his claim to knowing what he's talking about. But I guess we're also talking about a nonsense subject. It's not like this is anything anyone will like. This is not an educational thing. This is more like, all right, we're gonna have your dad sit down and talk to you.
Have you?
All right, we got through one. Not as bad as I've seen previously. Let's find another. We've only been at this for 40 minutes. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. And here's the 5-minute videos. Is this? Oh, they have it. Oh no, they have like subjects because they think they. Oh, because they're pretending they're a university. Oof. Okay. All right. They think this is the best of PragerU. All right, hit me. Let's go. Let's go. The War on Boys. Christina Hoff Summers. All right, this is 9 years ago. I have actually seen this. I didn't intend to, but it's also been a long time. This is also, I wouldn't also qualify this as pre-watched in the same way, because when I saw it, this was like actually pretty close to 9 years ago. Maybe like 8 years ago, something like that. In like the rise of the online right with Gamergate and stuff like this. Back when, I don't know if they still are, but PragerU would have their full videos as advertisements as on other videos, often other videos with from people who would vehemently disagree with the contents of these Prager videos. And so I do remember seeing this and being kind of brought in by it. Because I've seen it even a little bit before, I think I'm going to skip it. Maybe we'll come back to it another time. We saw He Wants You, the least free place in America. That's good. Oh, what is the universe? Okay, I don't want to talk about I don't want to do another what you should do with your life thing, because we just did one of those. You know what? Let's go. The least free place in America. 9 years ago with how important is free speech on a college campus?
Important is free speech on a college campus? Here's what the Supreme Court said in 1957 in the landmark case Sweezy v. New Hampshire. Teachers and students must always remain free to inquire, otherwise our civilization will stagnate and die.
Yeah.
Inspiring words and true.
As a note about that, there are certain things that are not allowed to be studied in the United States. Things like the effect. Oh, I don't know if the effects of marijuana have. I don't know if that's been changed. That might not be true anymore. But I know, for example, the CDC is expressly disallowed from studying gun violence. So that's kind of interesting that he leads this way. Like places like this, they don't believe what they're saying, and it's important to keep in mind and remind yourselves of that as they say stuff like this, because this appears to be an interest in free speech and academic inquiry, but this is also the same side of the aisle who supports the NRA, who fights this kind of knowledge and learning. What they want is not free inquiry. They want their voice to be heard and no others.
Which is why what's happening in American colleges and universities is so disturbing.
Interesting that we don't know who this guy is.
A study conducted by the Association of American Colleges and Universities
we went all out with the graphics
revealed that only 30% of college seniors strongly agreed with the question, is it safe to hold unpopular positions on this campus?
All right, so we have an opinion poll asking a question with like a very uncertain term. What the hell do you mean safe? Because I know little crybaby right-wingers will be like, I said black people aren't human, and they didn't like that and didn't invite me to their party. Like, I'm sorry, I know you like to cry about that shit, but that's not being unsafe. And again, an opinion poll from seniors, like, okay.
Worse,
we're going to pretend this is real.
The study found that students' confidence that they can hold unpopular opinions declines from freshman to senior year. How can it be that at a place where speech should be the most free, the university?
All right, we already have our first misunderstanding. Oh, I shouldn't say our first. We already have a misunderstanding about what free speech means. They notice that it's talking about like, let's back it up to get his wording right.
Confidence that they can hold unpopular opinions declines.
So they had reduced confidence that they could hold unpopular opinions. Now, what does that mean, right? Like, obviously, no one's reaching into their brain and pulling the opinion out, right? That's obviously not what we're talking about. Maybe it's certainly not the case that if you express an unpopular opinion, that you will face academic repercussions. You won't be expelled because you think The Last Jedi was a good movie, for example. What they mean is that there are social repercussions for political positions that are considered reprehensible, or at the very least unpopular. I'm sorry that you are so like scared of people disliking you for the things you say, but that's their right. Free speech is not freedom from social repercussions. Now, maybe if you say, I believe in right wing positions, you shouldn't be expelled from a university, depending on what those right wing positions are. Some are definitely worth, at the very least, an investigation. Because as it turns out, a right wing position might look something like we should do a coup on the United States government on January 6th of 2021, or is it 2021, right? That's an opinion that maybe should be investigated because that would be a violation of that would be an interest in insurrection. But if you just say like, I think life begins at conception, and then people don't like you for it, that sucks to suck. Stop crying, Snowflake. I don't know what to tell you.
From freshman to senior year. How can it be that at a place where speech should be the most free, the university,
and the speech is still free, you're free to say it, and people are free to have opinions about you because of it, and maybe you lose friends for it because what you think is pretty odious. You have to remember, like, it's not, these aren't they're painting a picture for people who won't have been at a university. I guess I'm in that camp. To imagine that it's like this group think, if you say, actually, I don't think socialism is the best thing, that you'll like, you won't be able to like your roommate in your dorm will make you sleep out in the hall, and no one will sell you food, so you have to like either starve or go forage in the wilderness. That's not what's happening. There are social repercussions, and that's okay. That's actually good. There should be repercussions for people's positions, and that's including my own. If you think that it's ridiculous for me to think, for example, in our last video, like that people should follow their passions in their free time, or whatever else I said that you think is stupid, you can think I'm stupid. That's fine. Feel free to think that. I disagree with you, but that's fine. Both of us have the right to disagree. It's not a free speech violation for you to disagree with my view. Why then is this just about universities then? So they do exist everywhere. Partly it's I think because they have their own personal issue with universities. I mentioned this earlier, but it's that when you go to universities, people tend to end up being more left leaning. And we'll go on to see what he's talking about specifically here, but it's also because the universities are left coded. I think there's also going to be a look, the authoritarian left, they won't even let us say racism things without people not liking us. That's my guess of where this is going.
Young people fear merely holding, to say nothing of actually expressing unpopular
Yeah, that's not
opinions.
exactly what was said. That's not really what was said. Like, you can extrapolate maybe, but obviously, like, having an unpopular opinion is not scary in any way, because how the hell would anyone know this? This is absurd, right? It's like painting the picture of thought crime. No one's reaching into their heads to be like, wait, this guy's actually a Republican? Get him! That's not a thing.
The reason is that for decades now, students have been sent a clear message from their schools. Express dissenting opinions, violate political correctness, or even just criticize the administration at your peril.
So, what do we mean by this? Express dissenting opinions? This has got to be pretty specific, because the little experience I had in university settings was encouraged to dissent. Especially in my philosophy classes, it was encouraged to argue with the quote-unquote great thinkers of the past. Try to prove them wrong. See what flaws are in their arguments, because, as we mentioned in a previous stream, philosophy is a thing you do, not a thing you are told the ideas of. It's not a series of facts. It's a process where you examine ideas, and expressing dissenting opinions is necessary. Now, of course, it's what those opinions are. That might not be the same. If you think, for example, like, yeah, like the South was the lost cause and yada yada, like, yeah, you're gonna get some pushback on that. Or if you start fighting every class with your biology professor because creationism is real and you refuse to listen, yeah, they're not just going to be like, oh, you're right, creationism is real despite all the evidence we have. Yeah, you're not going to be able to just shout that without pushback. At your peril is obviously doing a lot of work. You're not going to get expelled for this shit. Violate political correctness. Now, what I wonder, do we mean by that? Now, political correctness, as used on the right, is a catch-all term for being nice to people, I guess, or like not being openly inflammatory. But ultimately, the things that will get you in trouble are things that, while considered issues of political correctness, are a little more clear than that. Or at the very least, the things that come to mind. If you start going around shouting the N-word, yeah, you're violating political correctness, and you will be hearing about it, because it's not merely that people are offended, it's also harassing, and it's also creating an unsafe environment for the other students, especially if this is done in groups, which, if it's not addressed, is likely to happen. And then criticize the administration. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how this is. My guess is this is not true at all. But it depends on what these criticisms are. If your criticism is that, like, is that they have problems with you saying the N-word, then yeah, like, you're probably gonna get some pushback. But it's all in these vague terms, because if they could point to anything substantive, they could be very easily disproven. But if you just vaguely gesture, how you can't prove I'm wrong. This is probably happening, I guess.
After working for 12 years at the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, I have seen hundreds of examples of students in Paris.
All right, what is this?
The Foundation for Individual Rights in Education.
Foundation for Individual Rights in Education. Let's go a sleuthin'. All right. For individual rights, was it in education? All right, who the hell are these people? All right, the mission is to defend and sustain the individual rights of all Americans to free speech and free thought. Okay, so a lot of euphemisms. The hell are you talking about? Yeah, the cross. Okay, is this just the script to the video? Hold on. Oh, because they wanted it to be named Fire God. All right. Oh, they changed the name to Individual Rights of Expression to a broader effort. Okay. Okay. What is it you do? You like rank colleges? Okay. Hold on. Let's see what Wiki has to say about this. Founder Alan Kors is okay. Okay. This actually doesn't seem that bad, but there's got, like, it's one of those, like, it could be right under the surface. Okay. Yeah, I don't really see. Surprisingly, not really seeing anything that's that much of an issue. Looks like a noble cause, but I haven't seen it first. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, with a lot of these things, it's like, I wonder if this is pushback against nothing, and this is, just the appearance of trying to do something good. This is why I'm looking into, like, if they're like, if who are their backers, that kind of thing. Like, oh, you find out it's actually, like, funded by, like, some like right wing billionaire kind of thing, like kind of like PragerU itself. So involving suppression of a student newspaper is involved. Conditional list of certain sections of a class is open only to Native American students. Interesting. I wonder why this was a thing. This is one of those I was a little worried about. I think I don't know enough about this to really see what the issues are. I am not confident that there aren't issues. Oh, hold on. Speech code incident? Organization wrote. No, this is just a backstory. Even this sentence was what I was looking for. Didn't seem to show up. Source watch. That might be useful. Ties to the right-wing connections. All right, there it is. Connection to conservative dark money groups. We found it with Hate Group Alliance for Defending Freedom. All right, we found it. We did it. There it is. Has received millions of dollars of contributions for politically active caucus, including over $3.4 million from the Charles G. Koch Foundation. The Koch brothers, if I'm not mistaken, are the ones behind PragerU, so it's kind of funny I made that reference because it's the same people. Okay, lots of money from right wing. Associated with free speech. No, I'm looking for this hate group that it was mentioning. Hold on. Yeah, Hate Group Alliance. Influence. Fire has partnered with anti-LGBTQ hate group Alliance Defending Freedom for some of those cases. Boom, we found it. I'm so glad. I'm so glad we looked into this. I was worried for a second. I was like, wait, is this actually going to be on the up and up? I don't know why that's worrying. I guess less content. But no, it has literal hate group connections. Yeah, it's not about the free speech. It's the pretense of free speech. Is also frequently weighed in on sexual misconduct, arguing that the definition of sexual harassment should not include large amounts of constitutionally protected expression, such as any unwanted sexual comments, gestures, jokes, or looks. So they're just like, yeah, this isn't sexual harassment. Let me do more sexual harassment, please. Defendant campus organizations that use hateful rhetoric to seek to exclude potential group members based on sexual orientation. So they want people to be able to reject group members that are gay. They took up the cause of defending student groups that did not want to pay extra security costs for hosting serial harasser Milo Yiannopoulos on his campus for a speaking tour. Yeah, it's all this like, by free speech we mean we should have the right to do what we want. Includes sexually harassing people, exclude gay people, fight LGBTQ rights, host a serial harasser even if the college doesn't want it. It's this faux free speech stuff, but it's obfuscated behind so many layers of bullshit of like you have to go so like how many things did I have to look at before I started to find the odious stuff that's behind it. Maybe if I had like done more thorough reading into that stuff, it just seemed like really boring to do on stream. But this is a lot more. Well, this is more just factual on a factual level. Yeah, Templeton Foundation, Humphreys Foundation, the Koch Foundation, all these millions of dollars pouring into it. Yeah, this is not. It's not like a foundation of people who are really looking to protect free speech. It's right-wing speech that they want to protect and condemn, and they want to put down other speech of people like gay people trying to join groups or whatever. Yeah. I'm so glad we looked into this.
I have seen
so now we know who he's talking
examples
about.
Of students in peril.
Students in peril? Now, like, does that mean because they were brought up on sexual harassment charges? Because they were... What was the phrase? We're just gonna keep this open. But it was because they were, expressing themselves with unwanted sexual comments, gestures, jokes, or looks? Yeah. So what I mean by right-wing speech is they want to protect Milo Yiannopoulos speaking, and by protect I mean they want him to be able to speak even if the university doesn't want him to. So in addition to allowing themselves to, they want to be allowed to do homophobia, they want to be able to do sexual harassment. This is not, however, an interest in protecting the speech of people like those who would be rejected from groups based on social orientation. It's the speech of the people who think like me, like Milo Yiannopoulos and people anti-LGBT groups, were without an interest in other kinds of speech. This happens all the time. People on the right would do this all the time. Steven Crowder, I think, has done this before. Ben Shapiro constantly does this, where they'll talk about free speech, but what they mean is you shouldn't stop me from creating an environment where you wouldn't really be able to speak. It's less, they're not on the right. They do not care about free speech. This has always been disingenuous, and what they want is to use the cover of free speech to stop anti-harassment actions from getting in their way of making things inhospitable to other people. This actually reminds me of a debate I had seen previously where this like Christian fundamentalist type was asked about whether homosexuality would be made illegal, and he was like, "Listen, by the time you could make it, oh no, this was this was the author of the Turner Diaries was asked about this, and it was like, would homosexuality be illegal? And it was the basic answer was, oh, no, it wasn't the author of that. I forget who it was, but it was basically like, oh, by the time you could make it illegal, Robert Sungenis, he's one of the creators of this like flat Earth, or sorry, this heliocentrism documentary. It's a great video from Folding Ideas about it. That's who it was. It was like, by the time you could make that illegal, it would be socially unacceptable, so people wouldn't be out doing it, so you wouldn't be able to find anyone to murder with the state for being gay anyway. And this is the exact kind of thing of like, ultimately there are some kinds of speech that suppress other kinds of speech, in particular harassment, and open racism does this. As it turns out, you weren't real free to say whatever the hell you wanted in the Jim Crow South. Emmett Till very sadly learned that the hard way, in that he didn't actually say anything. He didn't actually say what he was accused of saying, and yet was still killed for it. So they want only the kind of suppressive speech to be legal, and the speech that conforms with what they think, not speech in general. It's a hell of a digression, but I think it's important what I mean by right-wing speech, because I'm likely to use that term going forward, and that's what they're talking about. When they talk about free speech, they really mean freedom for us to do what we want, and you have no protections. There's another really good realization I think I've mentioned before. I think a Sean video captured it very well, where he's saying that on the right, there are conceptually two groups. A group that the law protects but does not bind. That would be the people in power, or like the us. And a group that the law binds but does not protect, and that's the underclass. And that could be any number of groups.
At Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, a student employee was found guilty of racial harassment for publicly reading a book that some of his fellow employees found offensive.
So
the book was Notre Dame versus the Klan.
We can look into this, and I will in a second. But yeah, harassment's a thing. I don't know what to tell you. And like, I've seen this come up before. I remember having an argument with a former friend about this exact topic. He was saying, someone was arrested for just reading Winston Churchill quotes, but what he was doing was harassing people by screaming it at them, kind of thing. And it wasn't that those quotes were offensive, because just because it's in a book doesn't mean it's not offensive, or just because Winston Churchill said it doesn't mean it's not offensive. In fact, it's pretty likely to be. But it is that in juxtaposition with acts of harassment that is a problem. All right, so let's see. Indiana University.
A student employee was found guilty of
Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. Purdue University in Indianapolis. I can
Purdue
speak.
University,
Words are a thing I can do.
A student employee was found guilty of
Racial
harassment
for reading this
publicly
book. I'm just going to search the book
that
title.
Some of his fellow employees found offensive. The book was
I guarantee this guy is lying about the details. He's just omitting or obfuscating or like using euphemisms to hide some of this stuff. There's no way it was just he read a book and people got mad about it. Okay, so it was Notre Dame versus the Klan. Let's go looking. And I do like to do this because, well, we see their article about it. I like to do this because it's important to note that that you can't take any of what they say at face value. So we'll start with this article on the subject. Why go away. Thank you. So this article should be about it's from 2008, likely talking about this thing. Okay. A janitor, whom a university official had accused of racial harassment so he's a janitor, not a student. Not that janitors should have less protection, but does that look like this is clearly intended to appear to be a student? Like, oh, students can't have opinions. So remember, this is an employee of the school, which also gives you additional rules to follow. I guess they both might have rules that they need to follow, but like you can be fired for all sorts of things. We have at-will employment in the United States, which has its own problems, but this is an employee, not a student. Reading a book about the Ku Klux Klan break from they got an apology. Okay, so maybe there's so what was the situation? A historical account. 50-year-old janitor was and student. Oh, okay, he was also a student. Never mind. But I mean, hello, fellow kids. I don't know. This 19-year-old with a backwards calf or whatever. Tried to explain the book was a historical account. Okay. So, like in the book. Oh, okay. So people were just really mad about reading this book with like. Okay. Oh, okay. So this might have actually been nothing. Like they might actually be. This might actually not have been that bad, or like they might actually be right about this case being ridiculous. Now there is one thing I've already noticed that we will get back to about a disingenuous framing of what's happening. Okay, so it records the events. Or sorry, no, the book. Okay, and the book was it was in the library. He was just reading it on his break. I don't need the summary of the book. I want to know what happened. Oh, so it wasn't even that it was overturned. After months of so long, the university withdrew the charge. So he wasn't even like this wasn't even he didn't even receive a punishment so much as like he got brought up on these charges in the first place, which is like okay, that sucks. But as it turns out, sometimes you have to investigate whether a thing happened, and like that often looks like charging a person and then doing investigation and well, I don't know how it goes with like taking it to trial or whatever in a case like this, but yeah, you do need to look into the thing and not just know at the outset that it's not a problem. The ACLU was okay, sure, okay. So weirdly, it seems like this guy was in the right, but the thing I've already noticed, this video came out 9 years ago. It'd be like 2014. Sometimes it rounds on YouTube. Let's say 2013. We're looking at articles from 2008 saying it was thrown out already. But he's acting like, well, we'll see what he says about it. But like, this has already been a not problem. The charges were withdrawn.
Publicly reading a book that some of his fellow employees found offensive. The book was Notre Dame versus the Klan, and it was available in the school's library. It recounted and celebrated the defeat of the Ku Klux Klan when its members marched on Notre Dame in 19...
Obviously, the people who are looking at him reading it don't know the contents of the book. Now, I think they might have been a little bit inflammatory there. But this is where like the details of the situation, it's hard to know in retrospect. But like I don't imagine that people were like, that book says the word the Klan on it. Get him. Report him. Like, you know, maybe they saw the burning cross. Maybe they asked him about it. Like, I doubt that part. But, like, we don't know exactly what happened. But we do know is that this was thrown out.
24.
Is that the charges were withdrawn.
So what did the university find offensive? The photo on the book's cover. At the University of Delaware, students were forced to undergo.
Notice he didn't say anything more about it. That was withdrawn. This guy didn't face any repercussions for this other than like the media shenanigans and like being charged, and that sucks. But sometimes people are mistakenly charged on things, and we're not going to mention that nothing happened to this guy. So we have University of Delaware. Students were forced to undergo ideological
as part of the university's compulsory student orientation program. The program was described as treatment for students with incorrect attitudes and beliefs.
So he's painting this as like brainwashing and like you're putting through the processor or whatever. But like maybe it's, hey, I know you come from like Klan territory, but you can't scream the N-word at people. Like maybe if you know, maybe they're saying, hey, you should treat all of your classmates with respect, you know, and not demean them on the basis of their race or sexual orientation, like this guy apparently seems cool with
doing. Students were taught to adopt highly specific, university-approved views on politics, race, sexuality, sociology, moral philosophy, and environmentalism.
This feels like the fact that he's not giving any details makes me feel like this is just made up whole cloth. Like they were like, oh, these are our values as a university, and they tell the students, and this guy's getting mad about it because it doesn't say that, because it says like sexual harassment is a thing you can't do kind of thing. Like, we're not getting any details here.
Required to attend one-on-one meetings with their resident assistants, where they were compelled to answer intrusive, probing, and utterly irrelevant personal questions such as, when did you discover your sexual identity? And an increasing number of schools are
My guess is you don't have to. You could say, like, I'd rather not talk about it. My guess is, and like, one-on-ones with your RA isn't necessarily a bad thing. That might just be like, hey, what's up? Good to meet you. And these questions, like, there's a part of me that doesn't believe it, but even if that question was there, you're probably free to just not answer, or to just say I'd rather not talk about it.
And to drive religious students off campus. Vanderbilt University, for example.
Drive them off campus. Yeah. Again, this is like there's nothing here. I can't even check to see if he's making this up, but I would expect
has enacted a policy that forbids faith-based student groups from selecting members and leaders based on their faith.
So I guarantee. Okay, hold on. This one we might be able to look into. I guarantee this is you can't be like, hey, you can't discriminate against gay people because you're Christians or whatever. That's probably what's going on. So let me see. Vanderbilt University, religious groups or whatever. Let me see if I can find this. It's gonna be kind of tough to find. Hold on. Okay, let me see. This looks like it might be what we're talking about. All right. Administrators of Vanderbilt University are beginning to enforce long-held non-discriminatory policies for student groups. Interesting. Policy is forcing a dilemma for faith-based organizations: either drop requirements that their leaders hold certain beliefs or forfeit school funding and move off of campus. So it's a non-discrimination policy. It says non-policy is more feeling the victims of discrimination include this. Okay, sure, I get that you feel that way. Little brother, superstar Aaron Rodgers, one of the members. Okay, let me just can we get some examples of what's going on? Requiring to comply with an all-comers rule, so you can't just reject people. Well, if you have to take anyone who comes in, even if they're like coming in bad faith, that might be an issue. But if it's just like, well, you're gay, so get out, or you're black, so get out, that it would fall under this as well. All group members must also be eligible for leadership when they draw a line. It's literally exactly what they're complaining about. Wait, did I miss something? Are they saying very explicitly that they want to? I'm not sure I understand your comment, Peachy Keen. All right, let me see. Affirm that it can legally refuse to recognize religious unless it allows all students to join, as other campuses. There it is. Controversy surfaced at Vanderbilt where several gay students were asked to leave a religious fraternity. Yeah, there it is. It's exactly what what I thought was happening, and exactly what that like what was the source whatever that site was talking about before. The issue was that they were discriminating against gay potential members. First Amendment prevents making law against free exercise of your religion. So you can exercise your religion, but this is not a religious group. It is a student group. You can exercise your religion, and there are some limits in that. If my religion like has as part of our ritual, we like sacrifice babies to at an altar, I can't do that. That is not carte blanche to do whatever the hell you want. And this is a student group on a university campus that was not rejecting people because of that person's faith, but because of the fact that they're gay, and the people in the group already were homophobic. You can be Christian and gay, as it turns out. That is you're discriminating against protected classes at this point. This isn't just exercising your religion. Yeah. So this is we can go back now.
As a result, 14 Christian groups have been de-recognized by the university.
So they had a choice, by the way. They could have remained recognized and simply not discriminated against, for example, gay people in their membership. They chose to keep their bigotry over their status as being recognized.
Then there are speech codes at a majority of American colleges and universities.
Yeah, this is kind of a thing.
What is a speech code?
I'm familiar with.
It is a university regulation or policy that limits or bans expression, written or verbal, that is protected under the First Amendment.
So this is sometimes reasonable and sometimes not. I don't know enough about it. I'm probably not going to have much to comment on.
Codes are applied with glaring double standards against religious, conservative, or politically incorrect speech.
Boom, right-wing speech. He doesn't care. Like almost certainly this is not the case. Universities tend not to be to work this way. There's one of two things are happening. Either it is not being applied unequally, and they're just whiny snowflakes who want to cry about it, and this is the only speech they care about. Very possible. Or the kinds of things that they want to say are the things that are tripping these rules because they have problems in themselves, like making a hostile campus. All right, what do you want to say here? Yes, they were complaining about this religious... don't share their religion, which is the spirit of the First Amendment. No. They weren't rejecting people because they don't share the religion. They were rejecting people because they were gay. You could be the same religion and gay. Sure, students aren't beholden to this, but it's ironic. Yeah, like, yeah. Well, so now I kind of want to look up these college speech codes. Let me see. Whoops, I can't spell. I need to go to college, apparently. Let me see if I can find some of these examples. Oh, well, they have an article about it. Let's see what they want to say about it. That was based on kind of, for example, an example of this type of policy would be a ban on offensive language or disparaging remarks. So this would, you mean like the sexual harassment stuff we were talking about, or using slurs for towards your fellow classmates, maybe? Let me see. Let me see if they don't want to give examples, obviously. Let me see if I can find some actual examples. All right. All right. Okay. Can I just get some examples of what some of these speech codes look like? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's basically additional harassment rules. So universities, beginning with the University of Wisconsin, responded with campus speech codes prohibiting offensive or intolerant speech directed at individuals or groups based on their race, color, religion, ethnicity, disability, sex, age, or sexual orientation. You cannot harass your classmates. This is very reasonable, actually. You can't just shout slurs at them. But this guy's mad about it, and yeah, it is going to hit conservatives more than it's and or or religious people or politically incorrect people, because those are the people who want to scream slurs. The video didn't say anything about being gay. They were complaining about the religion not being able to. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Like it's kind of implied in that like you have to accept like someone from another religion into your religious group, but that's not what was occurring. I see what you're saying. I thought you were arguing with me, Peachy Keen. Oh, okay, I get it. That makes more sense now. Yeah. I guess I misunderstood. My bad. But yeah, like here it is. Exactly what I was saying. It's not. It's just you're the people who want to harass people, and being told to stop, and only you're being told to stop isn't a double standard. It's that you were the only one who wanted to do it. Maybe don't.
Or simply speech that a particular campus administration happens to dislike.
That's not.
In other words, there are things you are completely free to say and write off.
There might be. Okay, so something that's going to make this hard to talk about just came up there, where I'm not going to be able to find every speech code on every campus and appraise them each individually. This is kind of like the shotgun approach that arguments like this like to use, where they'll just say like it's out there and they could do all these things, and to prove that that statement is wrong, you'd literally have to comb through thousands of rules and argue with them, misconstruing all of them. I'd rather just say the blanket, yeah, that's probably not true. And hold on, what did he just say?
Particular campus administration happens to dislike.
Yeah, like I'm given how dishonest he's happy to be already, and how much he has already lied about what some of these laws, what some of these codes are. I'm happy just saying, nope, you're making that up, even though I can't prove it, and it would be kind of impossible to prove. I'm not going to try to like look up every speech code on every campus so that it like, and if I find one that says like, oh, you can't use the N-word. Oh, just because you dislike it, I can't say it. You know, like he's not. This is the thorough dishonesty of the propagandist.
In other words, there are things you are completely free to say. And
oh, we also still don't know who this guy is. As a note, it's really interesting. PragerU will put it at the beginning and the end, and I have generally found when they put it at the end, it's because they don't want you to know who this guy is, because that would already throw a wrench into the argument. So we'll find out later. He seems like he's involved with this, what's the organization? Foundation for Individual Rights in Education. He's already associated with that, so it's actually a little weird that they didn't tell us who he was, given that, because you can make him seem like he's actually a pretty reasonable dude. Yeah, I'm curious. We'll look into him afterwards to see if there's extra stuff they didn't want us knowing before we heard what he wanted to lie about.
Write off campus that will get you in serious trouble if you say or write them on campus.
Yeah, as it turns out, there's no law against the N-word, but it would make for a really hostile educational environment if people were just allowed to call their classmates it.
Policies that ban speech that administrators find insulting or offensive. One absurd code that appeared at multiple universities banned inappropriately directed laughter. And in Orwellian fashion,
that seems a little weird, but my guess is there's more to it than what he's telling me. It'd be literally impossible to find. But can we just? Are we comfortable just saying he's lying about everything at this point? He's lied about everything at this point. I don't feel the need to try to track down what this lie is.
Even limit free speech to tiny sections of campus called free speech zones.
So this is a misunderstanding of what free speech zones are. I was very confused at these when I first encountered them, because the implication is you can't speak freely elsewhere. No, what that means is, what these zones are exceptions to these rules he's complaining about. If you want to do the sexual harassment, I guess if it's actually sexual harassment, that's a problem. But like, if you want to spout slurs, you can do it in the free speech zones. It's also an area. This is also kind of a protection for students, is that only in these areas can people set up to try to solicit for services or whatever. You can't have someone advertising their internship anywhere on the campus, because then it gets in the way. They start to stand right outside of classrooms and ambush students. It's And it's more for that end than anything else. So like when Crowder does his, change my mind bullshit, it's probably in a free speech zone because they don't want him just walking into a classroom and doing that. And I don't just mean him. I know that sounds like, oh god, I just sounded like, oh, so much for the tolerant left type thing. No, I just mean in the sense of like you probably don't want people interrupting interrupting classes and getting in students' ways as they're trying to get their education, just so they can, bother them with whatever thing they have on their mind. Like for real, if Crowder could just barge into classrooms, he probably would, and it would be a real problem, irrespective of what he said.
Recently, at the University of Central Arkansas, you were subject to disciplinary action if you said or...
Promise you, they weren't putting you in the fucking stocks. Okay. University of Central Arkansas.
You something deemed annoying.
Punishment for being annoying? Oh, that can't be real. This is another one where, like, I probably don't have to look into this, but this one's really funny. Was it Southern Arkansas? Of Central Arkansas. Let me... There's no way that it's just if it's annoying. Oh, yeah, look at this. It's not in here. Let's check their codes of conduct. There's no fucking way. It's not in there. I wonder if it's something else. I don't even see any other links that are likely to come up with a hit. No? Notification. Oh, the word annoy. Oh shit, we actually... Oh, no, hold on. So it's in public intoxication. We found it. What is... I don't know what year this is from. A person commits the offense of public intoxication if 1. He appears in public place manifestly under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance to a degree that he is likely to endanger himself or other persons or property, or that he unreasonably annoys persons in his vicinity. It's not for being annoying. It's for being drunk in public and to the point of being unreasonably annoying. Yes, it is because at some level it is hard to police whether someone is just being a general nuisance while drunk, other than the term being unreasonably annoying. Okay, so now we're like mad that you can't be sloshed on campus and bothering everyone for how absolutely hammered you are in a place that already is known for being a font of alcoholism.
To another student. In the most extensive study yet conducted of campus speech codes, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education found
a very suspect group, so my guess is their study is not very well. You know what? Before we hear the study, anyone want to guess if it's in their description? Any bets? Anyone think it's going to be in here? They're citing a study that this guy's organization claims to have put out and has evidence that would support their claims. Does anyone think it's in here? Let's see. Oh, would you look at that? It's yeah, wild. It's not. It's really surprising. It's not in here. Oh, that's so weird. You would think that they would have it. I'm honestly very surprised that this guy who has lied from end to end hasn't shown the evidence that he has.
62% of America's top colleges maintain serious restrictions on written and verbal expression that violate First Amendment protections.
From what he said, we already know. Like, this isn't even a revelation, but also what we mean by serious restrictions is very unclear. We can try to look it up. But what we mean by serious restrictions is very unclear. And also, yeah, it's not... it would be protected under the First Amendment to use slurs, but in this environment, it would be detrimental to the environment. And so, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be able to scream slurs at your classmates. We already know that's what they're for. But let's look into it. Foundation. All right, let's rights and education, speech codes study. No, this doesn't have the study. These are more. Yeah, this doesn't. Blast use of. Okay, this says it's a study. Okay. Well, it's interesting. There's no like. Okay, the fire.org, the complete is where the complete report is available. Oh, also some states have their own free speech laws, so maybe it's not. Not gonna be able to find it just from their main site. I don't seem able to find this study. I wonder if it exists. Or I wonder if it's because they do. Okay, so here's what I think. I should be more clear about what I think is happening here. They claim about this like study that shows 62% have this yada yada etc. I have already seen that on their site they have this grading scale for colleges where it's basically like green is they don't have that many speech restrictions, yellow is it's moderate, and red is like it's bad. They don't like when you say the F slur. And they have these reports or whatever. My guess is we evaluated each one based on how much we like the rules, and then we gave it this rating and found that maybe 62% got this red rating, which they think is bad. But what we mean by is bad is like really subject to who's talking. As we see, this organization doesn't like the idea of preventing sexual harassment or discrimination based on things like sexual preference. So yeah, if there's a university that protects against those things, they're going to give it a bad rating, and it's going to show up in the 62%. That's why I don't think we're going to be able to. That's why I don't think finding it's super relevant, and what I think is going on as far as this number. But it sounds really scary. Oh, that's so bad. But like, is it? I personally like it when people aren't able to do sexual harassment or discrimination. That's a thing I like actually. I think that's good. Maybe that's just me.
What are the consequences of all this censorship by colleges and universities?
Let's find out. What's the consequence?
I explain that in detail in my book.
Well, what's the consequence? Read my book. Pay me money. This is supposed to be a university class. Could you imagine your professor's like, all right, there's a ramification to these effects that we've studied over the course of this 4 minutes, and that is the length of the entire course. But since we've learned this much, we should get to the consequences of that since we're learning about it. And the way you do that is by paying me money to buy my book where I lie about it. I know a lot of professors make the textbook for their class their book and then sell it or whatever. This feels, I guess, similar, but more in a way to shine a light on why that's a bad practice as opposed to why this is a good one. This is so funny. Be afraid, pay me so I can keep you apart. Yeah, exactly, Peachy Keen. Yeah, just stay afraid. Just stay afraid and keep giving me money. Which this is funny. This is the first we've seen this guy's name when he's shilling his book. We don't even have his credentials yet. We'll look into it later. But now I know where to find it if they don't say it at the end. I think they will. I mean,
Learning liberty, campus censorship, and the end of American debate. But for our purposes here, I will focus on
campus censorship and the end of American debate. You definitely aren't biased with this one.
On just 3. First,
oh, okay, we are going to hear about
teaches students that they
okay, so he's going to tell us, but he's going to shill his book in the middle. Okay.
Have a right not to be offended.
The first, campus censorship tells students they have a right not to be offended. No, they have a right not to be harassed or discriminated against. But on the right, like that feels like a violation of their rights to be total shitbags to everyone around them.
The moment society says that people have the right not to be offended, it has announced the end of the right to free speech.
So, no. I mean, you could make this argument against the concept of harassment in general. He probably would. People like this tend not to really believe in free speech. But some kinds of speech, some kinds of freedoms necessitate every freedom requires a sacrifice of another freedom, and certain kinds of speech reduce the amount of free speech more than what they contribute. I'll explain what I mean by both. Living in a society like this one, give up the right to murder, which without any laws you would have. No one could really stop you, right? Well, I mean, they could stop you by trying to prevent it, but there wouldn't be a law that would penalize you for doing a murder. But you give up that right to murder in exchange for the protection from being murdered. So we already see we're okay with some freedoms being lessened in order to provide greater and more important freedoms in other contexts. This is what free speech is about in the first place: is your the the freedom of like people in power to penalize people who speak out against them was less important than the freedom of the people without power to express sentiments that are contrary to the rulers. You can say that the president is terrible and that you want him to not have power and you think every policy is horrendous, and that's your right, and that's good. But there are some kinds of speech that restrict the speech of others, sometimes indirectly, sometimes directly, and that causes problems. The best example is one that most people agree with: threats. If I say, hey, if you say one more bad thing about you, I will kill you, that's a pretty big imposition to what you feel you're able to say. And whether or not I do it really has no bearing on the fact that it does impose a restriction on what you might feel safe to say, in a real sense safe, not what this guy is pretending about being safe, but actual safety, bodily well-being. And so threats are illegal, because while I would normally have the right to threaten without any laws, that right causes more harm than removing it from me. The same is true with things like harassment, which this guy likely is okay with, because he would not be the kind of person who would be harassed. He would be the kind of person who would harass people. And this extends in a more nebulous way to things like hostile environments. We already have some rules about this in the workplace, things like creating a hostile environment in terms of sexual harassment, but it's not all-encompassing throughout society in a way like being free to use slurs is something that the First Amendment does not restrict you from in a broad sense, but on a campus where you are required to be around these people, where if it's too ubiquitous, suddenly people who would be subject to being called those slurs, and a lot more, are a lot less safe. Like in a place where people feel okay to say the N-word, and a lot of them do it, being black in that place would be really unsafe, because the people who are okay with doing that are okay with doing a lot of other things, and they view you as less worthy of protections in a lot of these ways. And so that kind of protection might exist only on campuses. I think you could make reasonable arguments that that protection could be expanded elsewhere, but especially in a campus setting, is very reasonable to have these kinds of protections. It's not the end of free speech. It's protecting the freedoms of the people who would be subject to this kind of discrimination. The hate speech thing is actually less demonstrable than the discrimination aspect, which he was standing up for before, and the sexual harassment thing. Does the campus even need a good reason to prohibit certain speech if it's not publicly funded? Theoretically, because in the same way that you're trying to get people to go to your school or whatever, if you have literally no right to say any words unless asked by a professor, that would probably be really bad for the school, irrespective of whether it's government funded or not. But I think also a lot of these, I think most, at the very least, of the examples he gave were government schools. And generally these things tend to be kind of ubiquitous because universities learn from each other. So I don't think the publicly funded thing, it doesn't seem that important to what you're saying, Peachy Keen, the publicly funded part, but I focused in on it. Yeah, I mean, technically, probably not, but just in terms of like a moral position, which is that's the affront he has, right? He's offended at these speeches. Like, let's be real. The offense is coming from this guy, and we're talking about more of like whether it's good or not whether it's whether it's necessary. But I'm not sure what the necessity is for these rules. Whether universities need a good reason for this kind of thing. They do have them, by the way. Probably, I think the main reason why they would need a good reason for these rules is because people make them. because people, in particular, educated people, tend not to do things because they feel like it as much. They don't tend not to make laws because like I just don't like you, so like fuck you, you can't say this. It's more like, well, I have a reason for wanting this in the first place.
Second, campus censorship teaches students poor intellectual habits. It teaches them not to think critically.
So this is where we're obfuscating again. He's letting it get away from the point. What he is referring to as the censorship is you can't harass or discriminate. But he's acting like what that means is you can't express a thought that might be you can't argue with Descartes in class is what he's acting like is happening, but it's not, right? It's just additional. This is more like lies by implication.
Lest they arrive at a conclusion or express a thought that might offend someone. Further, students are taught to ignore the timeless principle that educated people should actively seek out intelligent people with whom they disagree for debate and discussion.
Yeah, but like the people who will be cut up in these rules are not educated, are not intelligent people with whom they disagree. It's just the same reason why it feels it's like if some guy is just really intent on discriminating against gay people in his Christian group, I don't know that you're gonna be able to have an argument with him. Like, you're just kind of a bigot, man. Like, there's not really a lot. Like, this is we came across this before. Most of the time, debate, especially with someone who's being dishonest, you're never going to convince that person. You're convincing the people who are listening, and to pretend like, oh, you should just like seek out the bigots and debate with them and let them speak their mind. It does two things. One, it pretends that the two positions, bigotry and anti-bigotry, are equivalent in some sense, and they're not. And the other thing it does is it acts like these people are open to argument, and they're not. And it's just a waste of time. Sounds like fun. Yeah, like you could, like you can have fun with the shit show, and people do this all the time, especially on the internet. There is no shortage of people arguing with morons because it's a lot of fun to watch the shit hit the fan. This was a lot more common a few years ago when there were a lot more Nazis on YouTube and Twitch that were prominent, and they were just everywhere, and you could just argue with these absolute dumb fucks. So yeah, it can be fun, but that's not what a university is aiming for. They're not aiming for like, hey, let's have some fun laughing at a head ass dipshit. Instead, they're trying to make a productive educational environment for higher education. And yeah, I'm sorry, bigots get in the way of that. It sucks to suck. Stop crying, Slowfake. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell this guy other than like, hey, maybe like the two things I just want to say to him repeatedly are, hey, if you didn't harass people and discriminate, this wouldn't be a problem. And also, stop being so sensitive, you fucking snowflake. Yeah.
And third, it teaches students that they have fewer rights than they actually have. That they must defer.
Kind of. So I agree with this more in a setting, in school settings prior to higher education than here. I do remember coming across that when I was particularly in high school. Like, you just kind of have these assumptions of what you can say and not say. They're a little less strict than they're a lot less strict than he's pretending they are. It's not like you can't really express a lot of thoughts, but it does paint this like, well, you have to listen to authority about what you're allowed to say and what you're allowed to wear and so on and so forth. That can be it can impose kind of a restrictive view of the world. It's one of those, like, I didn't realize that I was accidentally following these rules outside of where I was being required to follow them. And what's funny here is people like this would also probably be the kind who are like, yeah, there should be a dress code in society. We see it now. Like, I think it was like Florida, who's like, you can't wear clothes out that don't conform with your gender or with your sex assigned at birth kind of thing. and a lot of these people were like, oh, women should be in full dresses and never show ankle kind of thing. So like, it's kind of funny that these are the kind of people who would argue for these rules, given that schools also have dress codes often. But what do you think they would be in favor of a dress code? I don't know about this guy specifically, but the right tends to be right. Like the one that comes up a lot since 9/11 is far right religious extremists in Islam have pretty strict rules about what women in particular are allowed to wear, but also men, right? You have to wear the turban, you have to have a beard, yada yada, etc. You also have people like this who people on the right who, well, as I say, I think there was, I think Florida is trying to like pass a law where you have to dress in a conformity with your gender assigned at birth. There either used to be laws in the books or there still are, and they just aren't enforced, about it being illegal to wear more than 3 items of clothing that are not in conformity with your gender in a lot of states. Those just I think aren't enforced. I think that was like caught up in the 14th Amendment rulings that uh, that have to do with a right to privacy. There are a lot of these things that come up a lot, and I remember seeing a debate also where another like another Christian conservative type was arguing about how Hollywood is like the source of pornography because they used to make movies where women's ankles were showing. I'm not sure that this guy specifically would, but it's this kind of thinking, this very like hierarchical, you should do what I think and what I say kind of thinking that leads to this. And remember, this is a very conservative platform where they have strong views about traditional roles and what is appropriate in public, and dress codes have to be in that. There's no way. Maybe this guy wouldn't like talk about it, or maybe this guy doesn't specifically have a thing about it, but PragerU definitely would. This might be like, oh, but they haven't said as much. I I would be extremely surprised if, if it were possible to break into people's brains and know what they actually thought, if the people at PragerU weren't on board for conservative dress. You should dress modestly kind of thing. And maybe they wouldn't at the outset think that it should be enforced, but maybe you could get them to that point when they have enough power kind of thing.
Arbitrary authority. A generation of students who...
Interesting that they have an issue with arbitrary authority. I think they say arbitrary authority there because they're right-wingers. They like authority. You absolutely should. They absolutely want you to listen to authority. They have lots of videos like that. But this is like, oh, this one's arbitrary. You shouldn't listen to them. Like, yeah, it's really weird when they try to argue against authority because they clearly like authority, but they have to come up with reasons why this one's not good, but my authority is, kind of thing.
Don't know their rights and believe they must get permission before speaking their minds is not thinking
again.
Like
this
a
is
free
like,
people. And that is a threat.
This is what he talked about is not the same as what is being implied here, but it doesn't matter, right? It's just all lies.
To a free society. The rights embodied in the First Amendment shape American society. They foster America's religious and cultural pluralism, spur scientific and scholarly innovation, and thus secure our remarkable prosperity.
What?
But today's universities, with their censorship, speech codes, and political correctness, are putting the future of this unique experiment in freedom at risk.
Okay.
This is the very opposite of what American higher education was founded to do. I'm Greg Lukianoff, president of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education.
He's the. It's weird they don't actually put his name card on the screen. That's pretty surprising they didn't do that. But yeah, let's look at Greg Lukianoff. I'm sure I pronounced it right, but also I don't care. That guy can get fucked. I do not give a shit. So this is their quote-unquote professor. He's an author and like president for this dark money pseudo organization, like pseudo activist group. Let's see. Probably not going to find much of interest. It didn't seem like there was a lot that came up here where his background is going to be influential to how his outlook on the world. He just seems like the guy they picked, or maybe not they picked, but like the guy that was in the place and time to get to found this fake civil rights group so that he got to be in charge, but it doesn't seem like uh he, he doesn't like the concept of trigger warnings apparently. This is something that's always been kind of weird to me of like, why are people mad about trigger warnings? If I say, hey, like, this might come up, if you don't like it, maybe dip out. Who's it hurting? Like, why is that bad? Are they just like upset at the concept that people will find things triggering in, like, some people have really serious trauma, and even if you don't, like shit, I won't watch a movie if you tell me it has jump scares, because I just don't like jump scares. It doesn't trigger me, I just don't like it, and I'd prefer to like watch a thing that doesn't have it. Why is this so problematic for anybody? I mean, but like these spoilers, it's not like they're gonna be like, hey, this is what happens. They'll be more like, hey, there's discussion on the subject of, for example, sexual abuse. It doesn't tell you It's not like a spoiler. That's just like, oh, hey, like if you don't like that, maybe dip. That's fine. But they're so mad about it. It's really weird. It's wild that they should put a trigger warning for the trigger warning because they get so fucking triggered over it. This is a blogger for HuffPo, columnist, sure. He testified before Congress on the state of free speech on college campuses. Oh, okay, this is just another instance of like, wait, why is this? Of like college or Congress probably doesn't need to be listening to this moron. He's made numerous appearances. Okay, sure, whatever. He's a guy whose main thing is lying about free speech on college campuses because he wants more sexual harassment. I think we're good here. I don't think we need to go that much into it. So we did it. We did a Prager Day. I think we're good here. I don't really feel the need to keep going with this. I think I have suffered enough psychic damage. Maybe we'll mix it up. I don't think we want to do more bets to PragerU since these videos seem pretty old, and maybe we should mix it up. But I do want to come back to these just because it's fun to laugh at them. They're dumb and wrong, and sometimes it's important to know the people who like sexual harassment and think it's good, like this guy, pro sexual harassment dude right here. But I think that's good for today. I think we can wrap it up there. One thing I am curious about, I know Peachy Keen, you would probably be in favor, but yesterday, after doing the deck review yesterday, I wonder if people would be interested in me doing more of those. I think I'd have a lot of fun doing that. We'll definitely do another debate review. We'll do more like we're not gonna put those aside for sure. I see you in the chat talking about it. We'll do more debate review stuff and like talk about debate things because I like it and it's fun. And I'll get to experience some new ones because as I said yesterday, I want to do more stuff where I haven't pre-watched. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I'm curious what people think about the like deck review type stuff. I think I want to do it every now and again. I don't want to do it super regularly. Like I'm thinking maybe I do like one day a week we'll do Prager videos, or one day a week we'll do these are the questions, which I still need to talk to the other guy about. I do want to do that. But I wouldn't want to do something like the deck reviews that frequently, but maybe every now and again. It would be fun to do, and I quite enjoyed it. Liked getting the feedback and working on it with chat. But yeah, let me know. Maybe I know that's definitely not how it's. That's definitely not the way. Yeah, down in the comments, just let me know if that's something that's interesting to you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.